Welcome back to the interview with Russell Earl Magowan. This is part 13, and you left off, you were telling us about Ching.
Yes, I met Ching at her sister-in-law's house at her apartment, and it was her sister-in-law's birthday party on May the 6th, and I went over there and I met Ching, and she was so attractive we decided to go together. And as I said, she sent to Houston and got all her stuff and had it brought up here on a pickup truck by her neighbor, and so she moved in with me. And actually, we stayed together for 15 years, and we had a real good relationship and did a lot of traveling together. Our first trip was to Manila, which is where Ching was from, of course, being a Filipino, and we went on a 747-400 and arrived there at 4 in the morning, and they were waiting for us. We went through customs and went to her old apartment. She had an apartment there. It was made out of concrete slabs, and then it had a corrugated metal roof, which most all the buildings had there. It wasn't anything elaborate at all. And from there we went out in cabs, taxi cabs, over the city of Manila, and then later we went to Bel Air, which is in Aurora, about 35 miles away, and she had relatives there, and they met us in a tricycle, which is a motorcycle with a rig on it, so two people sit in, they ride you, and this was run by her nephew, I think it was, nephew. And then he also had a little boat. Two men were out at it fishing, and they'd been out for 2 days, and they came in with fish and great big crab, and we had fresh fish to eat there with local people. Filipino people are real sweet, real kind, and all smiling, and they all knew Ching real well, even though she hadn't been there for a few years. Her relatives, of course. Her brother, by the way, had been the athletic officer for Marcos, the president, and he raised his family in the compound where the president lived. Had a home there the president provided, and he had 12 children. So when we were there in the Philippines, we visited many of the children of Ching's brother in their homes, and they entertained us. We were there for a full month, and I waded in rivers, slept in Napa huts, watched water buffalo plowing the rice fields, and I really did enjoy the Philippine trip. And we returned on a 747 from Manila to Los Angeles. It's 7,200 miles, and I believe that it took 14 hours, as I remember. It was a wonderful trip, wonderful aircraft, and a nice time. When we returned, while we were home a short time, and we decided to go to Florida to see my sister, who lived there, and she's alone. Her husband passed away, so Ching and I flew down there, and when we arrived, we took a cab from the airport to her house. Then she had a nice new car in the garage, so I drove that, and we took her out. We didn't allow her to do any cooking or anything like that. We didn't want to give her any trouble. Anyway, she's quite aged. She's, at the present time, she's 96 years old. And so she was up in years, so we didn't bother her that way, but we really did enjoy our time there. We would go to garage sales in Florida, and in fact, I got quite a few nice things in garage sales there and brought them back. Anyway, to make a long story shorter, we left Florida, came back to Los Angeles, and we stayed at home and went out to eat one thing and another. And then many of Ching's relatives, her nieces, she had 4 nieces. Of the 12 children, I said her brother had 4 were girls, and 3 of them lived close by here in North Hollywood. And so they came to visit frequently, and they talked in Tagalog, their native language, and they would eat here in our kitchen, and Ching would entertain them, which was nice. Then later on, the fourth niece, who lived in England, called and invited us to come to England. So we flew to England with Ching's brother and his wife. And when we got there, this is Ching's niece, and we stayed there for a full month in a beautiful home, 2-story brick home. Most everything in England is brick. It was Eastbourne, England that we went. Then while we were there, we took a trip. We paid for a trip on a bus, and we went on the bus under the English Channel, believe it or not. Which this is quite an experience. 27 miles across from England to Paris, under the ocean. There was a high-speed train. They put the bus on a high-speed train, and away we went. Anyway, we got to Paris. We went to the Eiffel Tower, got pictures, and we went down the Seine River. And then from there we went to Belgium and toured Belgium and enjoyed that. But then we came back. We got back to Eastbourne and stayed for a while, and then we came on back to Los Angeles. And another trip we took to Europe, though, we went to Italy, and we're in the Vatican, and Ching and I went to Mass at 11 in the morning. At the Mass, St. Peter's was loaded with people, which it always is, visitors, and we sat down, believe it or not. We were very lucky, and we got to sit down and go to Mass at 11 o'clock in the morning. She was thrilled, and we saw the Pope, of course. And from there we went out in a bus, and the bus took us on a 1,600-mile trip all over Italy, and this was really a nice experience. That's a beautiful country, and we stayed in 5-star hotels, and it was really wonderful. Well, we came home, and after we got home from there, we continued on with our life here at the house, and Ching, she liked to sweep and keep busy. She's a very busy girl, and she kept the house real nice and swept up all the yards and around and watered the plants. And she had she could make anything grow, and boy, she did. We had beautiful flowers, plants around that she planted and then watered and took care of. And I worked in my shop quite a bit, making Whirly-Gigs. I used to like Whirly-Gigs, wind machines that go around, and I enjoyed doing that. And so we each had our own activities pretty well, and we could get each other's hair, and we managed to get along real well. She was really a very, I say was, because she's gone now. She passed away, and that was the saddest day. Very sad. She had a heart problem, and I called her at 8:30 at night. I called the ambulance, and they came within 5 minutes, and they took her to the hospital, and she was there for about a week and came home. And then after she was home, her relatives came over, and they said, you can't take care of her. We'll take her over to our apartment. So they did that, and I kept visiting her for about a week, but she stopped eating, and she passed away in their apartment 10 minutes after I had left. I had spent the evening with her, and she said, well, I want to rest now. I said, okay, I'll go, honey. So I left, and 10 minutes later they called and said she had passed away.